Indonesia's government is again trying to confront runaway fuel subsidy costs that now account for more than 30% of state spending and are draining funds that should be going for much-needed infrastructure in Southeast Asia's largest economy. President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono's administration could announce this week new measures to restrict use of subsidized fuel. But with elections looming next year, and memories fresh of violent protests over fuel price rises in 2005 and 2008, he is expected to bow to the populist wishes of voters and not scrap subsidies. One option the government has is to ban private cars from using subsidized fuel in Jakarta and other large cities. But critics say they will be hard to enforce and would do little to ease the huge burden on a national budget. Last year, the bill for subsidies was $22 billion, nearly 4% of a total economic output. Suryo Bambang Sulisto, chairman of Indonesia's influential Chamber of Commerce, said that subsidies need to be abolished because they create a false economy that has led to a lot of corruption, a lot of smuggling, and the misallocation of funds. Indonesia has long been under pressure to reduce the subsidies. But raising fuel prices is considered politically toxic ahead of elections next year. It could hurt low-income Indonesians and cause a spike in inflation, which has been in check. Officials have already suggested there's little chance of any price rise this year, which raises the possibility that Yudhoyono will end up passing the problem to his successor when his second and final 5-year term ends in October 2014. For the moment, the government is hoping it can reduce what it spends on subsidies by curbing fuel consumption. Bearing that, it may be forced to issue more bonds to cover an expanding budget deficit. According to Anthony Nafte, senior economist at CLSA Asia Pacific Markets, said that there is not going to be any fuel price increase before the parliamentary and presidential elections in 2014, noting that Indonesia's energy subsidies are growing faster than all other fiscal expenditures. NAFTA added, what they probably are going to announce are measures to restrict the use of subsidized fuel to try and reduce the volume of subsidized fuel. That scheme is not going to work. A liter of unleaded gasoline sells for around 56 cents in Indonesia against 61 cents in Malaysia and $1.71 in Singapore. Chijokhorda Nirata Samadi, a deputy in the president's Reform and Delivery Unit, said lifting the price is an option, and the president has not closed that option. But as much as possible, he does not want to cause instability. Historically, nearly 15 years ago, protests over fuel price increases contributed to the downfall of autocratic President Suharto, an event still fresh in the minds of politicians eyeing 2014 presidential elections. Economists say the fuel subsidies unfairly benefit wealthy and upper-middle-class Indonesians who can afford cars. The World Bank estimates the average car owner saves around $100 a month from a cheaper fuel, while a motorcyclist benefit is $10 a month, and those riding on public transport only $1 a month. Pushing up the government's giant subsidy bill has been annual economic growth of more than 6%. That means higher fuel consumption and in turn, larger fuel imports. Indonesia is a net importer of oil, unlike years ago. If the government does not raise fuel prices, the IMF expects subsidy costs to stay at around 4% of GDP, contributing to a deepening of the current account deficit to around $29 billion from last year's $24.2 billion. Patsurang Desha Puttarangsi reports.